We're going to dive into Bitcoin today and take a look at where we are at the current moment. And I think the market is giving us a lot of clues as to where Bitcoin may be heading next. There's also quite a lot of other macro economic factors that would be influencing Bitcoin at the moment. And there's a lot of other commodities and a lot of other assets which are giving us clues also as to where Bitcoin might be headed next. So we're going to take a look at those as well. Now, last time we spoke about there's two really clear, well-defined zones here, okay? And we spoke about the 40K region, and we also spoke about this 46K region, whoops, up here, okay? So these are the two main levels that we want to be currently looking out for at the moment. Now, currently, what we can see over here is that we tapped up last week at about $46,000, there or thereabouts. And essentially we sort of double topped from where we were a few weeks back, and we sold off really hard and we closed the week below 40K, which was really important. We speak about these zones that are low volume and clearly well-defined areas because we typically get really big and clear reactions at those levels, and we almost know what to expect because quite a few times I've mentioned before, you know, I do always harp on about low volume areas, but they give you a really clear indication of what's going to happen. We always say they're going to slice through price really quickly, or we get, you know, really strong, clear, well-defined support. And you can see on every time that that's, the typical reaction that we get at those levels. So Bitcoin is really struggling at the moment, and I think, okay, that there is a lot of weakness in the market because we are currently struggling to get above 40, which I've marked in yellow over here, and even above that, we're still struggling to get above $46,000, which tells me that there's a lot of weakness in the market. And I just want you to take a look at last week's candle, where this is where you really have to be careful when you're, trading shorter time frames, because the higher time frames take the bigger precedence here, okay? And you can see that we started on the Monday last week with a massive surge up to 46, and we closed all the way back down pretty much where the weekly candle opened, below 40,000, which telling me that's massive rejection from those upper price targets. So that's why we're sort of seeing a lot of weakness in the market at the moment, and the momentum has got to be to the downside. Now, I don't want to tell you this any more than than I want to hear it myself, right? But you have to go with what the market is showing you, not what you want. And when you get these massive candles like this, it's really telling you, okay, that, prices are trying to go to higher levels, but we're closing a lot lower and we're not seeing that momentum or follow through at all. And you know what my base case is, okay? Last week, after I saw the Monday candle, I did think that might give us some momentum and the sort of springboard that we could maybe challenge higher prices at around the $53,000 potentially. But you know that my base case is that 33,000K either way was not the low, okay? I do think that we see lower prices more likely, and as the weeks are going on, you can't say that the market is not showing you or not advertising to you, okay, that we could definitely potentially probably go lower. I'm just not sure that if we completely, shit the bed and go lower straight away, or if we were to challenge slightly higher prices, maybe take out 46, move up to 52, something like that, and then move lower. Like I said, either one of these two are my base case scenarios, but still at the moment, I don't see 33K holding. It's not going to be straightforward because markets aren't like that. They don't just go straight up and straight down. They basically mess with a lot of people, consolidate in certain ranges and certain prices, okay, and then they kind of usually make the move when you don't really expect it. I mean, no one was expecting last week on a Monday for Bitcoin to be up 16% on the day, okay, and then basically completely faded the move out, for the rest of the week. Now, another interesting thing to note from here is when we reached 46K last time, okay, look at what the market is telling you in the same way that I did something similar like this about Cardano a few weeks back, where we got this, this retracement at 46, and then we tried to retest, and I had a fairly heavy sell-off, and then we tried to springboard straight back into the level over here, which you can see at 45.8 or $45,500, and you can see that we didn't make any attempt really to hang around at those prices and try to break through. We actually sold off last week even quicker than we did the first time round, with no real consolidation at those prices, which again is telling me that there's weakness here. And the fact that we closed the weekly below $40,000 tells me also that there is a reasonable chance that, because we know 40k is a real important level, that we may not even get above 40k. So my bias at the moment would be that we move to the downside. The only thing that would change my mind over here is if we can reclaim 40k, consolidate at these prices and then re-challenge. But until we see, okay, this sort of price action, then, the bears are most certainly in control at the moment. Now, I also wanted to draw your attention to give you some more confluence as to where the bias is heading in the short to medium term, because if we look at the weekly chart and we take a look at the Fibonacci exponential moving averages, what we can also see is that last week we tried to rally and push above all of them, okay, the 8, the 21, 34, and we got rejected from all of them, as you can see over here, and closed that back down below all of them. But for me, the most important one, okay, is the fact that we got rejected at that 21 exponential moving average, which was also at that key $45,500 level. And now you can see, if you compare this to where we were, say, a year ago at kind of similar prices, we were using these key moving averages as support, okay? And now what we're doing is we're actually underneath them, and you can see over here that when we're hitting the 21 and a lot of these key exponential moving averages, we're now using them as resistance, and it's now pushing us back down. And typically, okay, you've been warned, okay? In previous bear markets, previous downtrends, that when we do get rejected from the weekly 21 EMA, we do tend to carve out lower lows. So definitely something to look out for, and it's definitely showing us, that weakness in the market. So a 44k Bitcoin at this moment in time with this sort of rejection is a lot weaker than where we were last time. Okay, so again, bear that in mind and try to piece all these things together when we're trying to give us confluence for where we're at in the market. One last point as well is, like I said, when we've seen this before in the past, okay, now we can't use the past as 100% indicator of future performance, but what we can see is that when we have done this in the past and we've created some new highs and had a parabolic surge to the top, and when we come down below the weekly 21, retest it, okay, and then we continually start getting rejected in the same way that we're doing here, right? It's telling you most likely that we are, set for lower prices, and the floor that everyone thinks is the floor, which is somewhere between 30k, okay? And I remember this very clearly at 6k, is that, that's typically not the low. And in order for, I think a lot of panic to set in, I think for me, I wouldn't be too surprised, like I said, to see us basically flush out still a lot of new people. I still think there's a lot of people holding either altcoins that are hoping that they go higher. They don't quite feel the real pain yet. There's a lot of people who have got these stupid NFTs, and that's still all the rage. I think a lot of these people, and still the people as well who are messaging me going, is it a good time to buy Bitcoin, etc., etc. A lot of these people need to be flushed out. They really need to be flushed out, in my opinion. This is a very similar feeling that, what I was seeing back here in 2018, and I lived this, okay? I lived every moment of this, and I could feel the pain and how long and drawn out this phase was. And when this capitulated further, that's when people start saying, I don't want anything to do with Bitcoin. Why would I buy that? It's gone down 60-70%, and gold or whatever is all the new rage and going up at that moment. is the new thing, okay, then that's usually your best time to buy Bitcoin. Now, it's obviously important that you realize that this is not something that has to happen, and it's not, and I'm hedged accordingly for this because, I have cash positions ready that in the event that we do dump lower, that I can take advantage, okay, of that downturn. You don't want to be fully hedged long, in my opinion, or at least have some cash stored up on the side in case, for that eventual drop that does happen. And we spoke about, I'm not going to go through, the exact targets, but my base case is, like I said, somewhere in between 30 and 20K, maybe around 22, 24, 26K, maybe this is the sweet spot. And we've spoken about as well, I think if we find the 200-week, moving average is typically a really, really good time to be buying Bitcoin. So these are just key levels that you want to be looking out for, okay, when it comes to Bitcoin. Now, we'll go through some of the reasons that, this might be the bottom and we might, surge up higher from here, which is totally fine. But before we do that, if you can like the video, okay, subscribe to the channel if you want me to continue doing these weekly updates on Bitcoin to, keep you on the right side of the market. And, give you my perspective on where I think things are going. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We speak about the US dollar currency index, which is essentially a basket of other major currencies versus the US dollar, which tells us how strong the dollar is. But we know that this is an inverse correlation to Bitcoin typically. And when the dollar is strong, we've said this before, this will put pressure on Bitcoin. So it's not typically a conducive environment where you have the dollar acting parabolically and moving up very strong, where Bitcoin typically flourishes. These are typically moments where we see big downtrends, and sometimes we even see capitulations when the dollar is moving up and surging up very strong. You see here where we had the March 2020 COVID low was the spike in the US currency dollar index. Also, if you look at just the magnitude of the move at the time, when we had the low in 2018, that still came off the back of the dollar moving from 88 up to 98, which is about a 12% move, which is still a massive move in the dollar. And you can see that environment with an uptrending, okay, strong dollar is typically areas where we see massive downturns and capitulation candles, even sometimes in Bitcoin, okay? So definitely something to note and take note of. So, if we continue to see the dollar progressing higher, surging higher, possibly even taking out some of these highs, okay, then don't be surprised that Bitcoin is going to be under, heavy amounts of pressure. And I'm not sure that we get this. This is from an order block from about 20 years ago, but I think if we move up higher from here, then we definitely can tag, 108, and then the next stop for me after that would be about 112. So if we take out these highs, don't be surprised that we move up higher. And, parabolic moves can surge up a lot higher than you think. So, just definitely something to be aware of. And you can see, like I said, inversely correlated. So down towards these lows over here at about $88, look, these are the exact highs of where Bitcoin is. So when the dollar index is weak, okay, you can see, right, that these coincide, at exactly, those market cycle peaks. And these are, can give you, profit taking zones, and for you to sort of rotate into other assets, if you know how to play these correctly. Now, if we take a look at gold, and you can see that we've got this continued strength that we talked about last week, and we were speaking that, when the Dixie is typically strong and money's rotating into gold, it's typically an environment where we see risk off assets, okay, taking the lead, and risky assets like Bitcoin, NASDAQ, typically take a bit of a back seat. So this can also put pressure on the market. And, when you look at stuff like oil, wheat, copper, a lot of these commodities have absolutely skyrocketed this week, right? And what's that telling you? That, we haven't seen a commodities-led rally in the markets for quite a long time. So this is something that is going to put pressure, okay, on those riskier assets. And think about it, right? You don't get environments typically, right, where everything goes up. Everything has to be cyclical, right? So think about that for a moment, in that Do you really think that we are going to get an environment, okay, where gold surges higher, the dollar just surges higher, wheat, copper, gold surges higher, and the Nasdaq and Bitcoin and all of cryptos are just going to completely parabolically move to the top? I don't think so. Okay, I think a lot of those assets that did pretty well during COVID are now rotating. And like I said, markets are very cyclical, so you have to be aware of that. And like I said, you have the information in front of you. You've essentially you have it in front of you, and you know most people will decide to ignore it, okay, or you can decide to say, hey, okay, do you know what, you don't necessarily have to buy all of these assets, but maybe put some assets or build up a bit of a cash position on the side so that you can take advantage of a potential capitulation or dip that may come your way, or at least hedge, okay, against an environment where risky assets are maybe not in the best position to flourish. Now, with that out of the way, okay, let's take a look at where Bitcoin is at the moment. And I said that, you know, I think that we are definitely under a lot of pressure at the moment, right? But I can tell you, like I said, as soon as we lost this 40k, my bias is that we go lower and we take these out, okay? And that 33k was not the low. However, if we look at where we're at the moment, this could definitely be, right, a higher low. You do not know what the markets are going to do, but you need to use the information in front of you and to act on that information, okay, in order to stay on the right side. So, the way that I'd be looking at this is if you're looking to buy in here, okay, and this is some sort of higher low, I would suggest that, you know, this low really needs to hold and that we start to reclaim some of these key areas at 46,000, maybe come up to the next major area, which for me would be 53k, which I mentioned potentially last week. This is the sort of market structure that you want to see, okay, from Bitcoin. But so long as it remains below all of those key moving averages and these key levels, if it can't even get above like 40k, it's telling you, like I said, that there's that key weakness in the market. So you just have to be, you know, hedged and ready for that. And as for the altcoins, I'm not even going to go into the altcoins because there is some serious weakness in the altcoins. And I said to you every time, I said, I hold pretty much Bitcoin, mostly Bitcoin. Okay, I'm like 80% Bitcoin, and I do have some exposure to some alts that I think have potential in the future. And I just hold and add to those in areas of value. And I'm happy to play the long game for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Not a problem for me for when that next cycle comes. And I'll be pleasantly surprised if it comes early. And if it doesn't come early and we move into a deeper correction, I'm ready for that. Okay, like I said, I've got cash ready on the side to deploy as and when needed. Going back to our market dominance BTC, really nice that we've spoken about. I don't think that at all it is any moment to be going into any altcoins, okay, so long as not only is Bitcoin bounced from those areas that we spoke about and we wanted to see the Bitcoin move higher, Bitcoin dominance move higher, which means that Bitcoin is taking the larger market share, which means that the risky moves are being faded out even within the crypto space, right, that people are flocking to Bitcoin in this moment, is that at least until these range highs at about 48%, okay, 47%, is the absolute earliest time that you should be, in my opinion, looking to kind of go long on altcoins. And if this breaks up higher and Bitcoin either has a rally to the upside or we shoot and correct and capitulate even lower, okay, and this breaks, then it definitely, you know, either way, it's not an environment where you want to be holding altcoins. Remember, this is already a risky, volatile environment. Why do you need to make it even more risky, even more volatile, and adding unnecessary risk, in my opinion, especially given the market conditions that we've spoken about in this video? I still see that continued strength in the dominance to move up to those levels that we spoke about. And, you know, I do think that we can potentially even move up to much higher levels. I think that we haven't, you know, had a Bitcoin-led rally or the dominance move up in any substantial way for quite a while. So I wouldn't be surprised for money in general to at least rotate back into Bitcoin for the moment. So like I said, just something else to be aware of. So I hope you got some value from that video and my perspective gives you something to think about. Okay. Just make sure that you stay on the right side of the markets as best you can. No one knows what's going to happen, but just make sure that you are positioned correctly so that you don't get completely ruined if we have a massive surge to the upside, or if we move and capitulate lower. Okay, like the video if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.